provide healthcare service to patient Jennifer, Dr. Chen has an authorization to the patient Jennifer's record in healthcare information systems. Let's say based on her family plan, Jennifer becomes pregnant. So the Dr. Chen, he is just primary the care physician, but he is not in OB clinic. So the patient Jennifer has to talk to genealogist or OB clinic, the doctors. In this example, Dr. Jane. So we have another relation between Dr. Jane and Jennifer, patient Jennifer, and between Dr. Chen and Jane, we have another relationship. And also, in order to provide service, Dr. Jane has to access the patient Jennifer's record in healthcare information systems. So that means Dr. Chen, he has to give his privilege to Dr. Jane so that Dr. Jane can access that information. So in other words, Dr. Chen has to delegate his privilege to Dr. Jane, then Dr. Jane can access. And also, another case is the patient Jennifer might need to see specialist. Then we have another relation between Dr. Chen and Dr. White, and the White can access this information, the patient's information through Dr. Chen's privilege. So that means Dr. Chen has to delegate his privilege to Dr. White so that Dr. White can access patient Jennifer's information. It's a simple collaborative environment. And in this particular environment, what is the issue? These are the research issues. Sounds like we need selective information is necessary. For example, even though Dr. Jane and Dr. White, they have the privileges to access these healthcare information systems, that doesn't mean that they can see all the information. Okay? Even though the delegation has been done, but information sharing should be limited. So selective information sharing is necessary. And when you look at this example, information may be shared across organizational boundaries. That means each organization might have different access control policies. How your delegation can be enforced or can be specified in different organizations. So information may be shared across organizational boundaries. And also, it's impossible to fully predict what data should be shared and when and to whom. So it's very difficult to determine the future of information sharing. So this is another challenging issue. And once you delegate your privilege to others, then you need a mechanism which can allow us to revoke the sharing privilege. So mechanism must be provided for revoking the sharing when it is no longer needed. So these are the issues. Then how can we solve it? So before that, here is the problem statement. How can we share critical information in a secure manner? So here is some motivation behind this project. Before 9/11, we have lots of federal agencies. They are reluctant to share information together, right? But after 9/11, they are trying to share the information together, but they are trying to share the information selectively. So that is some important issues. So that is the main reason behind this project. We just chose two examples as collaborative environment. One is healthcare environment. Another one is law enforcement agency. I will talk about that later. So then how can we share critical information sharing, critical information in a secure manner? You may need strong authentication. And also you need access control, and you need identity management. So we look at these three areas. For authentication, we got around $1.5 million from the Robert Johns Foundation. It was some group project. At the time, we look at the healthcare provider, and each provider, they are using different or various authentication mechanisms. The question is, can we develop scalable authentication architecture which can understand various authentication schemes, various authentication mechanisms? So we developed some scalable authentication mechanisms which can understand the password-based authentication and smart card and token, even some of the signature-based authentication as well. So in order to do that, we used the token. That token was developed from the Texas, one of the company in Texas. They call Java button. It's a small button. The token, inside this token, we have some computer chips. Even you can upload Java applets, and you can sign some information within that chip, so the private cannot be released from the chip, etc. So we developed some solution for the authentication. Now, once we finish that part, definitely we have to look at access control, because authentication can allow you to determine who the user is, but without access control, you cannot determine what kind of privilege has been assigned to the user. So we have to have access control. And we look at the various access control models. So in the domain, in this collaborative environment, we look at role-based delegation, and also we are trying to provide interoperable access management, because we have various communities. We may have different organizations, and the different organizations might have different policy and different enforcement mechanisms. Then how can we support our access control model for the various organizations? So we have to have interoperable access control management scheme. And also at these days, we also look at identity management. Let's say you have various healthcare providers, and each healthcare provider might have various users, huge amount of number of users. So then how can we control and how can we manage the identities for the entities in this kind of domain? So we look at the identity federation issues. We look at the Microsoft Passport and also Liberty Alliance specification, and we chose identity federation scheme. The Liberty Alliance Identity Federation is good for this collaborative environment. So right now, with the Bank of America, we've been developing privacy attribute management and identity federation architecture for the bank. Even though our original idea was from the healthcare and collaborative environment, some like the financial service institute, they are very interested in privacy attribute management. So today I'm not going to discuss all of them, but I'm going to focus on just access control part, role-based delegation and interoperable access management. Okay, then in that role-based delegation and interoperable access management part, what kind of research issues we can identify? First, I already mentioned the first bullet. Can we share information in a secure manner? That is the big question. And also, you may have another question. Do we need new security models for this environment? And what kind of security requirements and constraints or policies should be identified? And how can we specify those policies, constraints, or requirements? And how can we enforce security policies over distributed domain? And what kind of security architecture we have to use to support these models and also enforcement mechanisms. So we are trying to answer these research questions in this talk. First, then the first question was, do we need new security models? So in order to answer the question, we look at various access control models, and our conclusion was it is generally accepted that role-based access control is more suitable for collaborative application than other access control mechanisms to meet the requirements related to the particular collaborative environment. So that was some kind of the conclusion. But we realized that role-based access control cannot support delegation. Okay? So role-based delegation may allow users themselves to delegate role authorities to another users to carry out some functions authorized to the former. So in other words, using role-based delegation, you can provide business continuity. Right? So